Hello everyone, welcome to my workshop. Today we'll be talking about microplay, specifically how to play two tanks, Zarya and Roadhog. This workshop is suitable to players of pretty much all skill levels. We'll cover everything you need to know in order to play these heroes in any team composition that actually makes sense with them. So let's start with Zarya. So her kit and how she's used in team play, stuff like that. The Zarya in team play is used as a high damage output, peeling character. So she has the highest damage potential of pretty much any off-tank in the game besides Sigma. You could easily do 10,000 damage per 10 minutes on Zarya if you play her well. So she's got big carry potential. So her kit offers a strong frontline to her team and great peel potential for only the frontline. But if you use your bubble to peel for your backline, then it's only moderately good, right? Defense Matrix is arguably a better ability at peeling for your backline than bubble, which only comes up every 8 seconds. So peeling in this instance that we're talking about refers to mitigating aggro through ability usage or positioning, so in this case it's ability usage. Her bubbles are really good at enabling heroes who want to hard engage onto the enemy team, so we can think Doomfist wants to hard engage into the enemy team. Ryan, Monkey, they're popular bubble targets. So she has a really strong single target damage mitigation ability that she can use on herself or any singular teammate on a medium length cooldown. So it's 10 seconds for her self bubble and 8 for her projected. So this is arguably the strongest frontline peeling ability in the game because in a sense it's stronger than Defense Matrix in the way it gives absolute invulnerability for the 2 seconds or 200 HP's worth of damage, whichever comes first. And it's the only ability that can cleanse on an anti-grenade and Tracer Pulse Bomb. She's also the only off-tank that can turn incoming damage into higher damage for herself. At peak charge, she does 170 DPS, which is almost a full squishy health bar. So her ultimate Grav is also insanely good at comboing with teammates for flashy teammates. So we know all that, but like, what's bad about her, right? She sounds so strong on paper. So her shortcomings as a tank are her low mobility and her really long cooldowns. Like, she has very little in the way of contesting people at a distance, and her peeling ability for a backline only so-so, like we talked about. Also, she doesn't get immediate value in terms of being a tank, or in terms of damage, because she needs to use her bubbles to gain charge at the beginning of the fight. Technically, for the first 8, maybe even 10, 12, 20 seconds, she might not get enough charge on her bubbles to be a complete tank. She goes into the fight as a Zarya-sized baby diva. She doesn't really do much damage if she doesn't have charge. And she also really struggles against comps that don't feed her much charge. For example, if she's playing against a Tracer and a Genji, she might really struggle at keeping her charge up. So it's important that we pick her at the right times. So we should look into how we actually use her abilities. So there are 5 kinds of bubbles. We can actually classify bubbles into different categories, because if we know what kind of bubble we should be using when, then we'll be overall a better player. So uses for bubble. First one, charge bubble. Pretty straightforward. You can get maximum 40 charge from any singular bubble that you apply to either yourself or a teammate. So I have a question for you guys. Which bubble should we be using for charge the majority of the time? Personal or projected?
Projected.
What if I said it was personal? So when using a charge bubble, you'd want to use your personal bubble to get charge to increase your own damage output, because if you use your projected bubble, then you don't have a peeling ability. You can account for your own positioning at any time. You can move yourself into cover, but can you control what your Rhine does or whether your Ana gets dove? No, not really, right? So you want to save your projected bubble where you can and use your personal to get charged, because what are the odds that you as a 400 HP tank are going to somehow find yourself in a position in the next 10 seconds where you need this to save your life versus how you could bail out somebody else, right?
You haven't been in my elo, have you?
Well, you better find your way to cover real quick, Yogurt. Alright, so it is okay sometimes to use a projected bubble for charge if you know that the fight is not going to break out before the cooldown comes back up. So one of the biggest mistakes for lower elo Zaryas is that they just bubble at the start of the fight. They bubble, the bubble's gone, 2 seconds later, the Rhine gets antied, he gets hooked, he gets McCree stunned and fan the hammered, right? So that's why, like, if we notice that this is a pattern, we need to avoid it by bubbling at the right times with our projected. So if we save our personal specifically for charge, and we use our projected specifically to peel, we'll still get charge, right? But our teammates won't die on us, because we could be 100 charge, but if our Rhine is gone, and we're the main tank, we're probably going to die too. So another thing that Zarya players make the mistake of doing is bubbling before they take any damage. So they'll walk to the front of the team and they'll hit bubble, but no one's shot from the enemy team yet. So the enemy team doesn't shoot the bubble at all. So now we've wasted our 10-second cooldown. So make sure you take a little bit of damage to your health bar to make sure they're really committed to shooting you first. Maybe half HP, pop your bubble, guaranteed they keep shooting. Doesn't matter if they're GM or, bronze. People like to shoot things that are lower HP. So, at what charge should you stop using your bubbles for charge and start holding them? Number between 0 and 100. What's probably the right number? You don't need charge anymore at this point.
80.
What was the question again?
At about what charge is it okay for you to stop using your bubbles for charge?
60. I'd say around 80.
I would say 60. 60 to 70. Because you know that if you apply a projected bubble, you can get a maximum of 40 charge, right? So you can get straight to 100 from the 60 to 100 just by using your bubble to peel in sticky situations. So why risk it when you can automatically get to 100 just by using your bubbles properly, right? So 60. So make sure you're bubbling at the right time. So something that we should never be doing anymore is bubbling when we're already high charge specifically for charge. So we're 100 charge, the first option is now off the table. We do not charge bubble. So the second bubble we'll be looking at is the space taking bubble. So there are many different times where the Zarya will need to be the main tank temporarily. This would involve having to push space without having your Rhine shield immediately available to you. So say your Rhine is low, but you need to hold space. You can't just give up the space you have when you have your bubble. You can just use your bubble to become the main tank temporarily. Or say you're playing Hog Zarya, or for some reason your main tank is dead. You still need to be able to stand your ground. That's why this kind of bubble is specifically in terms of like holding or taking space. So you would use your bubble this way to allow you to move into cover safely. So going corner to corner, when you're crossing from one corner to the next corner, you take damage along the way, you bubble so you can get into cover, because it buys you 2 seconds of invulnerability or 200 HP's worth of health onto your health bar. So you're either temporarily 600 HP or you're temporarily unkillable, right? One or the other. But that's how you move and take space, even without a giant shield tank in the way. Because we can't rely on our Reinhardts for everything. So when combined with your high charge, you can use your bubbles to pressure the enemy team back. In higher elo games, Rhine and Zaryas do aggro switching, where the Rhine takes aggro first. This could either be when taking space or holding space, it doesn't really matter, but pretty much the Rhine plays aggressively in front, and the Zarya stays behind him. She can apply bubble to him when his health drops low, he backs off a step, and she steps in front of him and uses her high charge that she got from the Reinhardt to keep pressuring the enemy team back, and during this time, the Ana on his team or the BAP will heal him up. And when the Zarya drops low, she backs off, so you cycle the bubbles in such a way where you're deliberately switching who becomes the main tank, like aggro switching, right? So that if you do this, the enemy team is not focusing your Reinhardt as 6 players versus 1 for 30 whole seconds. Instead, 6 players on Reinhardt, and then 6 players on Zarya, and then keep going. So in this way, it reduces the chance that your main tank will fall over and die, or that he doesn't have time to charge his shield. So one of the biggest mistakes for regular Zarya players is that they don't know how to aggro switch. So practice it in your games, or in your team play, because it goes a long way to keeping your main tank alive. So the third personal bubble is the escape bubble. It's as self-explanatory as the name sounds. The enemy team is likely to punish your positioning. We can think of maybe double bubble. Zarya in double bubble gets run over a lot because her Winston just jumps away from her. So if we use our personal bubble just for charge, then we're going to get run over. So we need to think, okay, in this composition, I need to hold an escape bubble. Straightforward. Fourth bubble we're looking at, cooldown blocking bubble. So Zarya bubbles have really great potential for counterplaying enemy big cooldowns or ultimates. So you can use your bubble to block what cooldowns off the top of your head are really big ones, or ultimates that you can block easily too? Anybody? Shatter maybe? Right? So if you ult track enemy ults correctly, you can then hold your bubbles to counterplay enemy ultimates with some practice. So here's 2 examples of cooldown blocking bubbles. So in this scenario, a Zarya reads the fight. Ignore the fact that she's on console because it's essentially the same thing. Kind of blurry, really. but she steps in the way and she bubble blocks Shatter. So she reads that the Reinhardt, in this scenario, is looking to shatter her Roadhog, who is whole hogging on her screen. And so knowing that he's a juicy target, she's able to, with her knowledge that the enemy Rein has Shatter, because she ult-tracked, she's able to block it. Yes.
Did the bubble block the shatter for everyone behind?
It did. Because Shatter works in a cone shape, right? So if you're at like the tip of the triangle, where the hammer hits the ground, then you bubble, you can block it for everybody. It becomes essentially a baby Rein shield in that scenario, right? So if you use your bubbles correctly, you can make big plays. You don't even need a Reinhardt, technically. So in this scenario, she's using her bubble to block damage onto herself during the flux, so she doesn't take the damage. So just another example of like, if you got solo fluxed right there, or you and one teammate got fluxed, you could stop all the damage from coming in. Just by using bubbles properly, we denied whole ultimates. But this involves reading the fight. So remembering that at the start of the game, I look at the scoreboard and I'm like, they have a Reinhardt. I have to watch out for Shatter. When he gets close to Shatter, I have to either hold projected or personal so that I can block this Shatter. Because in ladder play or even team play, you have to also just rely on yourself to do the most you can, right? Like sometimes your teammates mess up. So being able to compensate for that with your bubbles is like one of Zarya's carrying factors. But it's not something that a lot of people think about in lower elos of gameplay. In higher elo, I definitely think that they do definitely think about it a little bit more. So here's an example of a peel bubble, which is the fourth or fifth kind of bubble we'll be looking at. So it's different than an escape bubble, and it's just used to take aggro off yourself or your teammates, so the enemy team de-aggroes off of them. So in this clip, the Zarya actually uses her personal bubble to block damage onto another person. And you can actually, like in a pinch, if you're out of projected, you only have personal left, you can do this to save somebody. Actually, I think this is like a really neat clip. Assuming my internet holds up. So this Mercy's totally dead, right? She didn't get a projected bubble, how did she live? This is actually hilarious. And just like that, you can save your teammate from even like a high noon.
She didn't even step in front of the Mercies, she just
put her inside the bubble, yes.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that was possible.
A lot of people don't, right? They're like, I have to get in front. If I can't get in front, it's useless. But you can actually use that to block certain ultimates. I've actually seen a Zarya use her personal bubble to block the enemy Lucio's beat drop. So she grabs, she runs into the grab, she bubbles, and when her personal bubble goes around the enemy Lucio, it cuts beat drop from coming out of him. So the high level Zarya gameplay potential, right? Things that people don't really think about when they play normally, because bubbles are just haha, press E. But there's a little bit more to it, I think. So let's look at her ultimate next, because we've covered bubbles. So the different kinds of grabs that we can use. There are aggressive grabs, defensive grabs, and environmental grabs. So aggressive grabs are normal ones where you like intend to wipe the enemy team, you combo them with another ultimate or coordinated aggression into the grab. So Window Fire Strike, Meteor Strike, Dragon Blade, just Hanzo Dragon, typical. So here's an example on the screen. Really just beautiful, basic blade and grab. So you get the flashiest team wipes with this kind of grab. So with defensive grabs, they don't really happen much in lower elos again, because like how often do you see your Zarya hold her grab to grab the enemy nano blade, or to use it to save your team instead of just throwing it so she can get the 6-man dragon, right? Like normally people don't defensive grab, especially in ladder play, because it doesn't look as good. But it definitely has its own place, and you can get a lot of value by grabbing this way. So it involves using grab to counterplay enemy team's ultimates or to depressurize the situation. So It's used in scenarios where you save your grab with the intent of using it to CC a threat. So think like a nanoed Rhine who's running into your team, or a nano blade that your team is otherwise unequipped to deal with. Say you don't have beat drop or transcendence, you can become your own defensive vault with your grab. So it's absolutely great value for Zarya to grab nano blade. Why?
Well, Nanoblade is a team wipe ult, so we basically team save.
Yeah, and it's 2 ultimates for the price of 1, so that's pretty value, right? Although you should grab their feet or beside them. Like, I'm not responsible if you grab right into deflect, right? But you're definitely denying the value of 2 people for the price of 1, and potentially winning a team wipe, like Yogurt said, so it's very good. This video example I have involves Zarya grabbing the enemy team away from her team during a grab so that her team doesn't wipe. And we could talk about like the rationale behind why this Zarya did this. So yes, the enemy team has Nanoblade, but ignoring that, let's look at this. So our Zarya, blue team, just grabbed the enemy when the grab was going on their team. We know that there's 0 potential for our team to follow up. So why is this considered a good grab? Can we look at what they have on the board?
Enemy is blue, right?
We're blue team. We just counter grab the enemy team. This is just an example. Why do we need to do this? Otherwise we'll wipe.
I don't know.
We have no shield, right? So when we all get grabbed, we're automatically pretty much going to die to their team in this scenario. But we can put the Mei wall in front as well. But then the enemy Ryan was already on top of us and he was swinging. And we need to get him off of us, so we grab to keep their team off of us. Now then we look at the defensive ultis. Even if we were to grab their team in an aggressive way, could we follow up on it? Probably not, because they have Transcendence. Do we have a Transcendence or a beat drop? No. So like, our Zarya realized, okay, if I don't grab here to CC the enemy team, and this is specifically a CC ultimate, we're not intending to follow up on this, because we're stuck, right? If I don't grab them to take pressure off of my team, we don't have a defensive vault. We will wipe. So we choose to grab the enemy team off of us, right? So it's not always about getting a big dragon into your grab or comboing it with your teammates. Sometimes it's about counterplaying the enemy team because you're preventing a wipe so you can fight for longer. You can always charge another grab, but sometimes you're not going to have another team fight. So the third category of grabs is environmental grabs. So you can use grab to actually pull people off the map. So this would be different than just CCing because you're actually using the pull ability for something, right? Gaguri is famous for making such a play. We'll take a look at a play on Lijiang Tower, Gardens, I think. I would say that grabbing the team off the point so they can't touch also falls into this category because the idea is that instead of using the CC aspect, we're pulling them off the point, right? As well, on top of the CC aspect. So in this scenario right here, I have a video example of an environmental grab. So the Zarya grabbed the wall right there, and you see how the team falls off the map? Because they're all walking across the bridge. We grab the wall, the grab yoinks people from the bridge against the wall, and when the grab ends, they all fall in. So you often don't find grabs like this in ladder or even in team play because they require some planning, right? You gotta look at your environment and be like, how can I land a grab to pull people into the environmental? But I'm just showing you this possibility because we're thinking about all the different ways we can use grab, right? Beyond the traditional, just throw grab dragon. And this is like a situational way for you to team wipe an enemy team without a combo at all. So you could do this by yourself.
Another great thing about that is that you actually get the ult charge for them falling off the map.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you start generating after the ult ends, right?
Yeah.
Ah.
So it's actually a super creative use of grab, and maybe it'll help you someday, maybe it won't. But knowing that it exists is what's important here. So now let's talk about Zarya's biggest problem. And this is like a problem for Zaryas in pretty much every elo. Your grabs sometimes get eaten, right? And sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, but there are things that we can try to do to prevent it. So let's watch this video. because I think
Now
this
that
guy has
we
a great
know what a good
explanation.
ultimate is, how does a gamer avoid getting gamed on by defense matrix? The easiest way to use your ultimate is by yeeting it onto an object between you and the enemy diva. This works because defense
The
matrix
sound works,
can't
right?
actually pass through a map object. It
No,
also makes
no
it
sound.
easier for your
No
opponent to
sound.
splash
Yes,
an
sound,
anti-
but it's
I
super
hear the
quiet.
But
sound.
what happens when there's
Okay,
nothing
guys,
to ult
turn your
but
sound on.
people in front of you? Well, then that brings. Now that we know what a good
Because I think maybe you have the sound of the stream off, because if some of you can hear and some of you can't, then you just gotta turn your Discord volume, stream
Yeah, I
volume
can.
thing on. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were correct.
Alright,
Now
let's
that
watch
we
it again.
know what a good ultimate is, how does a gamer avoid getting gamed on by defense matrix? The easiest way to use your ultimate is by yeeting it onto an object between you and the enemy diva. This works because defense matrix can't actually pass through a map object. It also makes it easier for your opponent to splash an anti-nade. But what happens when there's nothing to ult but the people in front of you? Well, then that brings us to the most practical option, paying attention to the enemy diva. If she's really close, just shoot her until she's forced to fly away.
So he had a really great explanation for how to deal with the defense matrix, and I agree 100%. This is exactly how I deal with it when I play ladder myself. So definitely try to remember that if they have a diva, that she is kind of your counter. So you need to counterplay it, either by shooting her or grabbing an object or a wall. So when you're playing against, sorry?
You could also, if you play with Orion, get Orion to fire strike. Then the diva will probably eat it and drop the matrix right after. Good
Yeah.
chance to yeet in a grab.
If you time it right, yeah. So if you're playing against a Sigma, you can also do the same thing. Or you can just grab beside him because his eat probably won't eat it like that. Same with the Genji deflect. So small side note, because we're covering everything about Zarya in this guide, let's talk about mobility on Zarya. So you can use your right click, everyone knows, to just move quicker out of spawn. But you can also use your right click to get to high ground where the situation allows. So you see in this scenario, this Zarya used her right click to get to high ground. So by right-clicking the cart and getting to high ground, she saved herself a very long walk. So knowing that it's a possibility is a good thing for you guys, because then you can use it in creative ways to get places. Alright, so I have up on the screen the good Zarya tank synergy, so she pairs well with Monkey, Rhine, Hog, and even Ball in some scenarios as well you can play with.
Why Hog?
So why Hog? Hog Zarya was actually like a very, very big comp in the OWL last season. And the reason being you would play it for incredible shield break, you'd have pretty good pick potential, their ults combo pretty well together as well. Hog was just in like a super strong place at the time, and so you would play Hog and then you would need a bubble for him because he's so vulnerable to CC. So the counter to CC is typically a Zarya bubble, right? So you would stop the anti-nade on him, which was like a big deal. Sleeps, stuns, just anything that could kick his vape, and it would help him get in and out of the fight safely. So up on the screen, I have Zarya positioning. So Zarya positioning isn't static, it changes comp to comp. So in Brawl with Rhine, she should play slightly to the side and behind him. Why? Why not hip to hip with the Rhine?
I don't know.
So how can you see his health bar falling if you're beside him? You can't. You need to be able to throw the bubble on him. So playing to the side of him. Now, you want to stop people from encroaching into his space. So you don't need to stand on top of him to do that, because his hammer will stop people from walking through him. So you move to the side a little bit. It also allows you clear vision of what's going on, including the ability to beam the enemy Rhine in the side, or the enemy Zarya on the side. That's how the off-tank fights normally go. Another important thing about it is that Zarya has more range than Rhine. So if you play touching your Rhine, both you guys are going to get hit by the hammer. why would you want both of you to get hit by the hammer when you can still do damage, but he can't hit you with the hammer by moving to the side and behind him, right? Something that some Zaryas have a problem with is they sit right on top of their Ryan. So one, they can never see him, and two, they're always getting hit by damage that they don't need to be getting hit by. So that stresses out their healers, especially when their healers are playing a single target heal instead of a group heal. So like they have an Ana on their team, it gets very stressful, needlessly. So let's correct our positioning from now on when we play in Brawl. So how and when does Zarya use her bubbles with Brawl? Anybody? Like what scenarios should you be using your projected bubble, for example?
Save the Ryan.
Yeah, to save the Ryan. So his HP bar drops, you bubble him. He gets antied, bubble. CC, also bubble. So bubbles in this comp are used for that, and also for enabling your team's ultimates to go off without being CC'd. So your Ryan says he wants to shatter, you should probably put a bubble on him so he doesn't get stunned by something random, like a flashbang. Or, of course, for aggro switching, because we also talked about that earlier. So here's just like the basic list. I will also post this after, so you can all see it. So let's look at double bubble. We're just going through the comps real quick and how we use our bubbles in each comp. So how and when does Zarya use her bubbles with double bubble? Anybody?
When the Winston jump in.
Okay, when the Winston jumps in. That's good. Anything else?
You can also use it when they jump out. I know some Winstons like to use their own bubble first.
Yeah, and if he somehow survives long enough for the 8 seconds, you can use it for him to jump out, even if you used it for him to jump in.
Yeah.
So that's all correct. You can also use it in double bubble to peel for your Ana, because normally you play the Ana, and the Zarya sits right on top of her, so you can use it to peel as well. It's not as optimal as using it for the monkey engage, but yeah. So let's talk about positioning in double bubble. Or take a look at this video I have, actually. I had to use the BFG stat banana for this. Finally got some use, yeah. Alright, so monkey engages, so Zarya has crept up and moved in behind the monkey. Monkey jumps away, Zarya has to back up, right? So we watch it one more time because it's only 9 seconds and I'm sure we can afford some of that for this hour. So you see? Oh, it loaded some B don't see. Okay, so monkey went in and Zarya moved corner to corner to go in, and as soon as he was moving away, she had to back off. So this is actually like just positioning, but we can talk about how her bubbles are used during this. So projected bubbles in double bubble. So we covered all of these already, but her personal bubble. Let's talk about it. So in the scenario right here where the Zarya is going in, when should she use her personal bubble?
When she's trying to go out again.
Yeah.
Save it in case they have some CC sleep dart shit that will stop you from getting out alive.
Yeah, so the personal bubble is a 10-second cooldown, so that's absolutely correct that you should be saving it to save your own life, because you know your monkey's just going to be like, see Zarya, and ditch the fight, just like he did in this scenario. And if you get stuck in front of the Ryan and Zarya without a bubble, then you're in trouble. So you always want to be like behind your monkey, and if he ever leaves, you also have to back up so you're out of the fight too. So absolutely correct. So what about in Roadhog and Zarya? We talked about this briefly, but let's theorize. With the bubbles, how should we use them?
Like you said earlier, for stuns, CC.
Right, and it's also to help him get out.
Anti-nade.
Anti-nade,
and
yeah.
get out.
So hogs can put themselves in some pretty sketchy scenarios, and they're not sketchy if you have the bubble to help them disengage. So this is not something that I thought I had to talk about, but Kronos' off-tank, for example, did not have this setting enabled. And why is this an important setting? Does anyone know what it does?
Yeah, it should. You get the same health bar over your friend list as the healers get.
Exactly. So does everyone have this enabled?
Wall hack.
Kind of. Like, normally when you play Zarya, by default, this isn't enabled for anything but healers. So you cannot see how much HP your Ryan has, or how much HP any of your teammates have. And by default, Overwatch comes with this off, right? So if you don't have this on, you have to turn it on. This is like the secret to not being a bad off-tank. Because how can you know when to peel for your teammates, or when your Reinhardt needs a bubble, if you can't see how much HP he has? You're always guessing. So make sure you turn it on.
Yeah, good to have on every hero.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually have friendly outlines always as well on every hero. Tank, damage, support.
If it helps you.
Both of these.
But the first one's mandatory, for sure. So if you don't have it on right now, make sure you have it on. So we've covered all the basics of Zarya. Zarya is a pretty straightforward hero. Let's move on from here because we're in the second half of the hour. So the next hero we'll be taking a look at is Roadhog. So he's a high shield break, medium to low damage off tank. Why do I say that? Well, most hogs average about, let's say, 7k per 10 damage. That's relatively low compared to a Zarya who could easily average 9 or 10k. But he's got incredible shield break. And he has really, really great self-sustain. So if your healers suck, pick Roadhog. He can play independently from his team, and he has the best defensive peel ability in the game with his hook. So why do I call it an offensive heal ability? Well, peel ability. You are pretty much pulling somebody off of your teammate if you're trying to use it to peel, and then you're trying to kill it. Because you're not mitigating any damage on your teammate, or reducing damage at all. You're just trying to pull the threat off. So it's an offensive peel ability. He doesn't offer a very strong frontline. If you try to frontline on Hog, it's not that great. But he's really, really great at controlling flanks and going flanking to secure picks of his own. Because if you leave your Ryan and your Hog on the front line versus like a Ryan Zarya, your Hog is probably never going to get a kill because it's very hard to secure kills on tanks as a Roadhog versus a Squishy. A Squishy is obviously like an easier pick. So his kit's pretty basic. He has a close to medium range shotgun, a hook, 300 HP, mitigating self heal, damage mitigating self heal. As an off tank, he's not complicated to play, but we can classify hook usage in similar ways to Zarya Bubble. So uses for hook. We can secure eliminations, really, really easy. Disposition or environmental the enemy team. CC and ultimate, or we can use the threat of being hooked, in this case not using your hook, for certain purposes. So we'll look into this. So securing eliminations with hook, the combo is you hook, you walk forward, and then you primary fire at the neck. Because if you aim it on the head, the pellets go around the head. So typically neck is the height you go, and then you melee. So here's Harblue's video on him hooking a Zen.
Yeah,
so he didn't melee here, so didn't finish.
What can also help is the quick melee right.
So you saw the Zen actually dies with the punch at the end. So if you don't melee, then you don't get the kill. Really, really easy. So we'll go on to the next portion.
A quick note on that: you can queue the melee by holding the melee before the hook finish, so it will automatically go into the melee. You don't have to time the melee, basically.
Oh, pro tip by Yogurt. All right.
Can you repeat that, please?
When you throw the hook, right, you basically start a pretty long animation. The hook goes out, grabs the enemy, pulls him in. Before all that happens, you can just release the hook button and you can go straight into holding the melee button. So then it will automatically queue up the melee and it will automatically melee when it's ready for it. So you don't have to time your melee.
Yeah, but you should shoot before you melee.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But you can hold the shoot button and you can hold the melee button. I actually made a macro for it that did it automatically for me once, and it worked well.
So the next kind of hook involves turning after you hook about 45 degrees to your right or your left to disposition the enemy team into your team or over an edge for an environmental. I'm sure everyone's been hooked into the Ilios well before in this some kind of way, at least once, because everyone has to do it at least once in their Overwatch career. So you should use these kinds of hooks against people you either want to drop off the map or against tanks who you know you can't one-shot, because by turning them into your team, it makes them have to walk further back to get out of your team, and you can use your model by stepping like between you and the enemy team to cut their healing. So by drawing them further into your team with their hook, you have extra time to kill them. You can see this here in this video clip of people getting environmentaled by Harblu. So he was able to turn and hook people into the environmental. So if you play close enough to it and you get used to the distance with which you can move people, you can plan ahead of time to hook people into the wall or a similar position.
Yeah, another good thing you can do with it is hook through chokes and body block them from getting out again.
Yeah, that's so terrible. I hate it when it happens to me.
Just don't get hooked.
Yeah. Another thing with the hook is some heroes you don't have to shoot right after hooking. You can walk a little bit closer to ensure the kill.
In
Yeah.
general, I
Like-
just walk forward all the time because then it puts myself in position to move towards where they're going to be running away from, right? We know they're going to run backwards to where they were because that's where you hook them from. So it allows us to get into range for the next shotgun shot if we don't finish right away.
Yeah, and you have some exceptions like Reaper, Sombra, Tracer. They can use abilities that can actually get them out of the combo. After you hook them, the Reaper can fade out, so you have to shoot the... English bad. Shoot straight away.
Normally with heroes that we know can get away, it's even better if we can just right click them once from range to get their HP a little bit lower before we go for the hook. It costs more ammo overall, but it makes it very easy to secure the kill then because we reduce their HP to a manageable amount for us to guarantee the finish. So let's talk about the third kind of hook though. So this happens in higher level Roadhog gameplay. It involves saving your hook, specifically for the purpose of using it as a defensive CC. So if you know that the enemy team has an ultimate that you can cancel, and you can do this by tracking the enemy ultimates, so for example, Shatter, or Death Blossom, or even High Noon, then you can CC the enemy team's character to stop the ultimate from going off. So it's the same idea as holding a bubble defensively for blocking Shatter. Instead of holding the bubble, you're holding your hook, because you know that the Rhine is going to try to Shatter, you can probably hook him. This is obviously like very difficult to do, but it's easier on ultimates like, for example, Death Blossom. Barrage, Flux, there's a whole bunch of ultimates that you can cancel with hook, if you remember to hold it for the right time. So the last kind of hook I want to talk about is a kind of like a neat one. I think that people don't really place much stock into actually holding their hook. I'm not saying never hook anybody, but there is some value to be had by holding your hook to be threatening. So what do you think about a Roadhog who still has hook versus a Roadhog who doesn't have hook?
Oh, big difference.
Yeah.
Hook is really scary.
Yeah, just having an enemy Roadhog looking at me makes me move away. I don't do that with a Reinhardt or a Orisa, Zarya and stuff like that.
Same thing as
Yeah, you can just go on.
same thing like an Anna holding his sleep, her sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Those
not
are the
using
things,
hook.
scary things.
It can be enough for enemy teams who don't have ready access to shields. So example, you're on a flank as Roadhog and you run into the enemy soldier. He has to respect you, right? He has to play a corner. He can't just walk out into the open because he's worried he's going to get hooked. So if you don't hook in situations where you find yourself in 1v1s with other people, you can win against that person by not hooking, because you get all the space for free, because you can walk on them and they have to respect the fact that you still have hook and they have to back off. So if you use it, you automatically downgrade yourself from threatening to alt battery until your hook comes back up. Everyone's favorite call out, you can have a team that says nothing at all, is hog no hook or hog no vape, right? Like everyone loves hog as an alt battery. So be threatening enough by not hooking at the right times to move in and guarantee that you're going to secure a kill, or guarantee that you can take space. So guys, I have a question for you, and this is like a random one. Is whole hog a good ultimate?
Not alone.
No, not no, yeah.
Depends on the map,
Cost.
positionings, and everything.
Version.
If
I feel
it's,
that it's totally useless. When I press the whole hog, I feel that everybody's focusing on me and I can't do shit to save myself.
I actually think it's a great ultimate.
yeah,
Hilariously.
a lot of damage you can combo with Zarya. Alone, you can boop people away. You can use it to TT the enemy team, get them away from your team. You can also use it to just boop them the heck off the map, or kill them in a corner.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of utility for it. Now, I want to talk about, I guess, like my stance on whole hog. I think it's actually a really great ultimate, but only if you use it in really, really specific defensive scenarios. So, like, you can do the typical aggressive whole hog. You find people, you push them up against walls so that they can't get pushed away by your whole hog, and then you kill them. Really, really easy. This is like an example of an aggressive whole hog. This is super from Shock. He whole hogs during OT. He uses the aggressive aspect of it, pushing them against the wall, but also the pushing them away aspect, dispositioning, so that they can't touch the payload. So that's like one basic, really normal use of whole hog. It's probably the most annoying ultimate in OT of all time. Like Sigma Flux, I don't care about that. It's the whole hog that really gets me. Can't touch, right? Can't even CC him half the time. It's so bad. Then there's yes.
Other great example from season 1 in League where Timer ulted Zenyatta off point so he couldn't touch it. Ulting Zenyatta.
Well, actually, I have an example of whole hogging and ulting Zenyatta, but we'll see that in the next one. So not this one, but the one after this. So this is just environmental whole hogs.
Oh, goodbye, Moth. Straight into the cars.
Is whole hog actually the only ult that can push away a ulting Zenyatta? I mean, you can boop him and stuff, but it's not very far. It's not very far, really.
Yeah.
He will just get back again.
So, yeah, I think it's probably the only one. I mean, you can concussive him, but that's an ability.
Primal.
Primal, yeah, that's right. Im's right.
Yeah, true.
So, the first whole hog type, just securing kills. Second whole hog type, zoning out a specific area or securing environmental kills through zoning. Useful in scenarios where you're trying to stop the enemy team from recontesting or to environmental kill them. So the third way of whole hogging is pretty straightforward. You just use it to break enemy shields really quickly so your team can follow up in terms of damage. But the last one I want to talk about is the biggest one for this workshop, I guess, and that is defensively whole hogging. So does anyone know off the top of their head what ultimates can be defensively whole hogged?
Well, if you're stuck in a grab.
Okay, so grab.
Charging Reinhardt, I guess it's not that much used.
Blade.
Blade?
Blade, but he will go into deflect mode, so you need to keep your eyes open and turn away.
Yeah,
you just look at the ground, it's fine.
Yeah, if he has to deflect, the blade is not that dangerous anymore.
Yeah, so you can stop him from getting in there to your team and getting on your heels. So that's like very niche scenarios, right? What if I said that there's probably about 10 ultimates that you could actually whole hog defensively that people don't really necessarily attribute to whole hog being valuable? Here's the list. So if your team is in a grab, that's the first one. We talked about that. Now, shatter. If you can see the enemy Ryan going in for the shatter, you can actually lift him up in the air with your whole hog and keep pinning him up against a wall. Then he will die. Also, if you don't get shattered because you're playing an off-angle, you're on a flank, and your team gets shattered, why can't you whole hog their team off your team so you don't die? Right? Nano. Anytime something gets nanoed, why don't you whole hog it away from your team? Bam, nano gone. Right? Like, we call nano a high-value ultimate and whole hog a low-value ultimate, so this is like a great trade, isn't it? Bob, get him out of your face. If you don't have hook. Duplicate. She wants to be in your team doing damage. Whole hog her away. Blade. Even Arista fortifies an ability, but that's like kind of a big one, so I put that up here too. You can actually whole hog a tire so that it will move the tire away from you, and then it'll break too, because it does a decent amount of damage. So you can whole hog defensively to cut 6 seconds, because that's how long whole hog lasts, off of your tire, or the enemy team's tire, that is. If you whole hog a Symmetra wall, Sim wall lasts like a long time, 15-20 seconds? It's pretty long. And you can actually break Sim wall with whole hog. And you still have 1 second left on your 6-second whole hog after you break the sim wall. So, value.
Didn't know.
Yeah. If you're playing against a monkey and he primals your team, this is actually probably the best use of whole hog. You instantly deny his monkey ult and you probably kill him, right? Now, Transcendence. We know that we can disposition Zenyatta in Transcendence, and this is like a niche scenario, but for example, I have this video right here. Let me change the resolution to be a little bit higher. So the enemy Zen is in Transcendence, and our team's Genji is nanoblading. So watch this from upwards view.
Transcendence doesn't get any heal.
Yeah.
Or not much heal at all.
So by pushing the Zen away from his team, we denied his whole Transcendence. So we would call Transcendence a big value ultimate. It's a huge ultimate. And we call Whole Hog a very terrible ultimate. But one can then deny the other, right? So instead of using whole hog in the way we think of it as being like, I can environmental people with this, but only on this map, or I can kill people with this, but only if we get into this corner where I can really block them in, right? We can use it defensively by looking at the enemy team. If there are 10 different ultimates or 9 different ultimates, and we took 4 to 5 off the list, that we can be using whole hog against to counterplay, then maybe whole hog is not so useless, right? But of course, that's just my opinion and how I use it personally in ladder play.
This is big brain. Never thought about it like this.
So I put all the video examples up. So let's talk about what the optimal hog ranges are. Because for some reason this is like a niche thing to talk about, but anyone know off the top of their head? Like
Close to mid-range.
yeah, close to mid-range. So it's actually, you want to be like touching them, or you want to be about 10 meters away for optimal Roadhog damage. And the reason is the right click explodes at like, I think the guide I read said 8.5 meters. But you can actually see the implications for this in the video and we can discuss. So we're standing 10 meters away right now, aiming at like just about neck height. We one shot at range. Now we move 5 meters away, we're going to right click again. You'd think it would one shot, right? No, it only does half. Can try this again, aiming a little bit lower. Or higher, I don't really remember. Yeah, lower. So we aimed lower, still one shot at 10 meters. 5
Still
meters.
right click, right?
Still right clicking. This is all right clicking. It's only half.
Right click. It doesn't do damage before the spread starts.
Yeah, so it doesn't do anything at that range. So if we were Roadhog and we actually know this, and the importance of knowing this is not just some like nerdy niche thing, it's so you know how far away you should be playing. So by eye, if you can identify that you either need to be touching the enemy team or at this 10-meter distance, then we can improve our overall DPS, right? Because if you need only one shot to kill somebody at this distance versus like the 5-meter range, why are we playing in the 5-meter range at all? We're ineffective. So it's something that people generally know when it comes to Sigma. Like, I need to either play far away or touching the enemy team, but it's not something that people really think about when they think of Hog's right click, so I just thought I'd point that out. Also for the record, because this is a guide about everything about Roadhog, right click is better at breaking shields than left click, because you normally break shields at a distance. Just something small. So up on screen.
Roadhog's pellets doesn't have damage drop off, does it?
I don't think it does.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it doesn't have damage drop off at all. So standing at range, shooting shield, it doesn't matter if it spreads.
Yeah.
It's interesting. If it doesn't have damage drop off at range, it probably is the only hit scan that doesn't have damage drop off. I
think it stops at the 8.5 meter mark and then it explodes normally, and then it keeps going. But like, there's got to be like a maximum range on it though. That's it. But no damage fall off for that range, I think.
I mean, they probably don't need to put in damage drop off because the pellet will spread. So if you hit something far away, they won't take more than like 3, 4, 5 damage or something from that one pellet that got them.
Yeah, we would have to look it up. Maybe we'll have some time after. We'll see. So
another question about the ult. Do you have a diagram? That's the wrong thing. Something to show how the spread on the ult is?
No, I don't have one here. We could look it up after if we have some time.
Yeah, because that's pretty different from what most people think.
Yeah, it's 5 rings, isn't it?
Yeah.
I saw something about that once.
Alright, so let's talk about the tank synergies. So Roadhog pairs well with these tanks on the screen. So Orisa, Sigma, Zarya, and Ball. The last one, I mean, he doesn't really pair that well with Ball, but I mean, if you have a Ball, you normally see Hog being played with it, and it's because he can self-sustain and kind of play on his own to secure kills, and he can hook stuff that gets hammer slammed or pushed out of position. But yeah, these are the traditional Hog pairings. So, pop quiz. Where should Hog play when Orisa is his main tank?
With Orisa or in range of her pool.
Good. So playing with Orisa is absolutely the correct place to play. So he needs to be able to see the pull and capitalize on it. So is the blue team's Hog in Orisa Hog versus Orisa Hog in the better position, or is the red team's Hog in the better position?
Red team. He can stand behind his Orisa's shield.
Yep.
Even though it's possible to be pulled over the shield by Orisa. But he doesn't take damage before he get pulled over the shield, at least.
So
What
that's
up?
correct. Hello. So, the reason why playing behind the shield is also valuable not just because like you're not taking damage, but also because if you play the Orisa Hog versus Orisa Hog and you both get pulled up in the air and the Orisa's in front of you, she can actually fortify to block the hook. So in this scenario, red team's Hog is playing in the smarter position, and if his Orisa helps him out a little bit, he'll never get hooked, so long as she has fortify, right? So you can actually counterplay properly in this interaction. So here's a video example of pulled pork being played. Don't know if they call it that everywhere, but yeah. So hooking the pull. So Orisa pulls, she calls the pull. We hook above, we hook, we kill. Okay. We can even hook around corners to secure kills, and that's why this was pretty broken for a while. Now that Orisa pull has been nerfed a little bit, it's not as strong, and Orisa shield isn't as great either, but overall, I mean, it's still a solid comp on maps with environmentals, for example. You see this being played a lot on Ilya as well, just off the top of my head. So where should Hog play with Hog Sigma against Rein Zarya specifically? Anyone? Should he be frontlining or should he be flanking?
On corners, maybe?
I would think he should be with Sigma, helping destroying the Rhine shield, maybe?
So I would say with Sig Hog against Rein Zarya specifically, you should actually flank. And the reason being, if you were to break the Rein shield and you were to hook the Rein, what's the Zarya going to do?
Bubble.
Bubble. So you spend a lot of time trying to break shields, and then a lot of time trying to get a hook, only for it to be bubbled, right? But if Zarya is always trying to play in the front of her team, is she ever looking behind her for the hook, so she can bubble it? Probably not. And if you hook a squish even into you, you can probably secure the kill. So with Sig Hog versus Rein Zarya, anytime you're playing against a Rein as Roadhog, you typically want to be on a flank, because it's simply easier for you to secure kills. Because these tanks are really good at frontlining, but they suck at controlling sides, so we want to take advantage. Because Roadhog's strength is actually playing sides. So I actually have a diagram here. So a Sigma, he's just frontlining, and the Hog will go behind, try and secure a kill. And when we get the kill, Sigma can start moving in, because the enemy team will probably back off a little bit, because they just lost a member. So another one. Where should Hog play when Sigma is his main tank against Sigma Hog? So Sig Hog versus Sig Hog. Frontline, flank. Ideas?
Frontline, I guess.
Yeah, frontline, I'd say.
So frontline, absolutely. Frontline is good for us because we can break the Sigma shield easily, because it's nowhere close to the 1600 shield of a Reinhardt, and there are no bubbles in play. So if we can hook the enemy Sigma whenever he eats or whenever he doesn't have shield, we can hook the enemy Hog because he's wide angling too much, and we can rock him with the help of our own Sigma. So the team that's better at hooking, rocking, and not getting hooked and not getting rocked wins. So in this scenario, they're playing like this, or they might play a little bit closer to each other, but they generally play kind of together. So next question. Where should Hog play in Hog Zarya against Rein Zarya?
Frontline?
So we still have the same problem, right? Where Hog is still hooking bubbles all the time, or hooking Rein shield. So anytime with Rein, without exception, you want to be going around the Reinhardt, because breaking his shield is generally pretty impractical. Like, how many GM Rein players will stand there and let you break their shield instead of just going behind the corner, kiting the hook, and then flicking the shield whenever you go in for the hook? I mean, it's not really that hard, right?
But wouldn't enemy team, since they have Ryan Zarya, let's assume they have Lucio, wouldn't they just go ham on the Zarya?
But if you were in the front line, are you going to stop them from going ham onto your Zarya? You'll probably just die too. Like, you're going to be a feeder, right? So you have to
True.
kite them around. So it's on your Zarya to essentially give space, get charge up, get enough charge to pressure. But for you, you just gotta secure those picks because Brawl is just really bad at flanks and sides, so you have to capitalize. So against Ryan Zarya, flank hog. So we're talking about flanking at the right times against the right comps, pretty much. So what about
Basically,
Yes, Zarya.
just a comment against every time you play against a Reinhardt Zarya. Basically, what the enemy Reinhardt Zarya wants you to do is to damage them. That's how they build up momentum, the Zarya beam.
Yeah, and if you stand in
So-
the front, you just charge like 10 grevs. So avoiding is good. Because we want to avoid feeding where we can. So where should Hog and Hog Zarya play against Hog Zarya? Front line or side?
I mean, same problem occurs,
Frontline?
I guess.
Front line.
Zarya wants you to do damage, wants you to hook. So you don't want to give her that.
So this is
I
where
would
the
say
tricky
flank.
question comes in, Yogurt. It's actually frontline. So Hog Zarya against Hog Zarya plays together because, so say you were the red team's Roadhog and you go into hotel and you try and get a hook. So what's stopping the blue team's Hog from just going to you and hooking you away from the sightline of your Zarya, right? Because your Zarya is standing in the same spot. You went through hotel. Blue team's Hog also goes through hotel. Now you're isolated out of sightline of your Zarya, but blue team's Zarya can still see their Hog on the corner, right? You want to play within sightlines of each other because you know that hook is a big CD for CCing people, right?
So this mirror match is actually
a frontline
mind
match.
game.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're mirroring each other. So it's basically like Ryan versus Ryan. You're gonna have to mind game a little bit. Who uses the first hook? Who uses the first bubble, etc.
Exactly. And who's canceling each other's babes, and stuff like that. So if you leave the front line and you leave your Zarya standing there, you're the red team's Roadhog. Your Zarya only has one personal bubble with which that she can block the enemy hook, and she cannot use it for anything else except the hook. So if she takes damage, she's just gonna die because she bubbles. She will also die. But if you have two bubbles on the front line, you can block hook and mitigate damage because you can step in front of each other. Remember to block as well. That's why this workshop is essentially on Hog and Zarya, because I think they actually pair quite well together for a workshop from the standpoint of they both use their ultimates defensively in some cases, and they also have to adjust their positioning according to what their other tank is doing. So in this mirror matchup, absolutely frontline.
Question:
Yes.
Who would be my hook priority here? I'm Hog.
Whoever doesn't have the bubble for them is easiest, right?
So if enemy Zarya uses friend bubble, heal bubble, then I will hook the Hog. If she uses self bubble, I will hook the Zarya.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Because then the other person can't really help. So let's talk through like a theoretical scenario, right? So Zarya uses her personal. So we hook Zarya into our team. How do we avoid getting hooked as well back? Well, what can we do?
You get friend bubbled from your friendly Zarya.
Exactly. So anytime the enemy team has misused our bubbles or misused their hook, we can abuse it. Because we know they don't have hook, we can play extra aggressive with our bubble because now we have this 200 HP bubble on us that we can use freely, because the cooldown for hook is 8 seconds, the cooldown for a projected bubble is also 8 seconds. So if he misses his hook, we can just use our projected bubble for a hog to go ultra aggressive with maybe a whole hog or something else, right? Just walking into the enemy team. So cooldown management is all that Hog Zarya really is. So do we have any questions? Because we're coming to the end of the workshop. That's pretty much the whole hour too. No? Alright.
I got loads of stuff to test out now in Coop.
Thanks
Feel
for
like
watching,
I'm gonna
guys.
climb another 200 SR just tonight.
That's good, that's good. So, hope you guys learned something or brushed up on the way you think about these two tanks. Let's try and start using our ultimates in a very defensive way, because I'm sure that we can find some value for whole hog, yeah? Alright, thanks guys.
Yep. Thank you.
GG's.
GG's.
Yeah, thank you for that.